There we go. Hey, everybody. Oh, I'm not going to get my layover. Oh, that's true. Okay. Hey, guys. I'm trying this differently tonight. I'm trying to do this with my directly on YouTube rather than using the outside software I use to see if it changes things, which means I won't have the cute little layout in the corners because that comes later, later in the experiment. But this part of the experiment is just trying to get this to work at all. So we shall see. Let me look here really quick. All right. So I'm looking here, making sure. Okay, well, let's see if it works. Well, this was evil YouTube this time, not the internet. I was like trying to go live, and it was letting me type messages to you all, but it wouldn't let me go live. Anyway, all right, welcome, folks. I'm going to just assume this is working. All right, okay. At least I'm here. Yes, all say hello back to me, so I know. There we go. Well, no, I'm trying to basically do this via YouTube exclusively today, YouTube and then TikTok, rather than using the outside software that also goes to Twitch and everybody else, just to see if it's any different. Because sometimes you never know how these things work. All right, let me get TikTok going still on my iPad. That's the same as always, and then we will get rolling here. Here we go. All right, Jeep and Jeep and Jeep. Okay, hey guys. There we go. All right, TikTok is rolling. I've got my notes. Woo-woo. I've got my water. All is well. Hey, Amanda. Hey, TikTokers. How we doing tonight, folks? End of the week. Woo-woo. Who is that? Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan. I wish I could play music. I can play music during the TikTok lives, but YouTube doesn't like it. So I don't know. Anyway, so YouTubers, you're seeing everything fine, right? I'm just making sure tonight. For hey, you TikTokers. So I'm trying to do things a little differently tonight. I am attempting to. That's funny. It did that. I am attempting to. Hello, Super Hornet. Thank you for that. I'm attempting to go live on TikTok directly rather than using StreamYard or Stream Something, which is a service I was using to go to multiple places, just to see if there's a difference in how this works. So we're going to try it out. TikTok, always the same. Good to see you. Thank you, Napoleon and Shane and Super Hornet. And who else did we have here? Did I miss anybody else? I don't think so. Jonathan. Anyway, welcome all. This is cute. My mouse, I'm laughing because my mouse is stuck on my iPad. This is too funny. Oh, there it is. Okay. My mouse goes back and forth from my iPad to my computer, and it's cool, but sometimes kind of freaks me out. Anyway, welcome, guys. You know how this works. We're going to wait maybe another half a minute or so just for folks to join us, and then we'll get rolling. Hey, Kronos, thank you for the gift, and Jeff for the rose. But yeah, we'll wait another half minute for folks to come in, and then we'll get rolling. As always, today we'll do a little bit of Ukraine, a little bit of Israel, a little bit of America news first. And then we'll go with the other guys. There isn't a ton of news on either topic today, really. Stream's weird on TikTok. That I can't help. TikTok is TikTok. Ain't nothing I can do about TikTok. Thank you, Teresa and John. TikTok's just weird, Thank you, Mustard. We finally got the new auctions up, so that's fun on Discord. So go check them out. You can hear it? Okay, good. Thank you, David. Glad you hear it well. All right, guys, I'm going to get rolling. So welcome, everybody. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. It's my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. That's 6 o'clock Washington, D.C. time. I am usually coming to you live from Washington, D.C. The next month or 6 weeks, probably, I'll be coming to you live from Chicago, where I'm visiting the mother. Thank you, Chief, for that, and Cammie. Otherwise, so just because we always get occasionally new people, if anybody's new, the way this works, I will tell you guys the news first. I'll tell you what I think is important with a couple different topics. As I said, we will be, Mom is doing well. We will be covering Israel and Ukraine both. A little bit of American news to start with. It's not much, just like one story that I thought was kind of funny, worth bringing up. And then we will go to questions afterwards. If you have questions in the meantime, feel free to. Thank you, Don. You can always throw questions on the screen. I typically won't get to most of them until second half of the show. Thank you, Jetta. But as a thank you, and Dawn, as a thank you to the YouTube folks who do super chat questions, I will always get to those as the very next thing I talk about. Thank you, Joe and Chief. And otherwise, if you guys do gifts on TikTok that fly up on my head, like Chief, did Chief do it? No, Martin just did that one. Chief is also doing a rose, though. Thank you, Chief. I will always try to do a shout out for the gifts that pop up. Who was that? Booty? Thank you, Booty, for that. And Mustard for the hat. I will always try to do a shout out for those as well when I see them. So thank you for those too. Kronos, thank you, sir. All right, guys, let's get rolling here. So, Coffee Talk, Saturday morning. Keep in mind for anybody who's a monthly subscriber, thank you, Marcy. That's monthly subscriber on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Ko-fi, Discord. That's the other one. You guys can join me. TikTok subscribers, you're on my iPad. You guys, thank you, Kronos. Anybody who's a monthly subscriber on TikTok, the folks with SNN after their name, like Jetta and Marcy and Chief, you guys can join, or not Chief. No, not Marcy and Chief. Sorry, guys. Ash, I'm mixing it all up. Ash and Ellie and Ash. You guys can join me Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, US. I will be live on TikTok just for subscribers. The rest of you can join me via Discord. I'll be live on Discord again for the Twitch, Ko-fi, Discord, YouTube. Somebody else I'm probably forgetting subscribers as well. Thank you, Norway. And otherwise, TikTok will be via TikTok. All right, let's get rolling, guys. I think you named, well, Ashley, what's the, you're so, it's like the New York, a city so nice they named it twice. Ahmad's so nice I named her twice. All right, guys, let's get rolling with Ukraine first. First we'll do the quick U.S. story, and then we're doing Ukraine. So the quick U.S. story, George Santos, who's the crazy Republican member of Congress, who even Republicans really don't like. He's a thief. He's crazy. He's a crook. He's a con man. And he's in real trouble. The ethics committee came out yesterday and issued a blistering report saying this guy's entire political campaign was about just stealing what he could. Well, very interestingly, the chairman of the House of Representatives Ethics Committee came out and put forward a resolution, or however they do it in the House, calling for Santos to be expelled. That means kicked out. What is important about this? The chairman of the Ethics Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives is a Republican. Thank you, Tom, for the swan. That makes it very interesting because if it's a Democrat, you can always wonder if there's political motivations, if they're trying to decrease the Republican majority, et cetera, right? If it's a Republican doing it, it's not a political motivation. It's just period not. It's the same political party. That's very interesting. So anyway, keep an eye on that because this could get very interesting as far as what happens next with Santos. Santos, by the way, because I find this funny, one of the things he's accused of is using campaign funds for personal use, which you can't do. And the personal use he used campaign funds for was 1, Botox, right, in his face, and 2, OnlyFans, which is a website that isn't just about sex. Some of the stuff on there is not about people showing off for money, but most of it is. I mean, most of it really is. The guy's insane. All right. Anyway, let's jump to Ukraine. So we'll do some Ukraine news first and then some news from Israel and Gaza. Today is day 631 of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation. Zelensky accused Putin of plotting a destabilization campaign against Ukraine, aimed at sowing chaos and ultimately fomenting a coup against Zelensky. Zelensky cited information, thank you, Ernie, cited information from Ukrainian intelligence as well as information from Western countries. I would not be surprised. I think, look, we know Putin. This is one of the things Putin does sort of regularly is trying to destabilize countries. They're doing the same thing in Moldova. Thank you, Danan. So I wouldn't be surprised as well if he's trying to do it against Zelensky. Now, here's another story. Thank you, Irene. A story that is maybe related, maybe unrelated, but I thought it was interesting. So first you've got Zelensky going public about Moscow trying to basically overthrow his government, right? Do a coup against him. The fact that Zelensky went public means he's trying to put some pressure on the coup plotters, basically saying, we know what you're doing. Thank you, Sean. Well, the same day, thank you, Eva, we find out that Zelensky has fired his deputy head of foreign intelligence. So the number 2 in kind of Ukraine's CIA, maybe is a way to call it. We don't know why, but the guy was fired. He's fired at the same time that news comes that the Russians are trying to overthrow the Ukrainian government. Now, again, interesting. They may be totally unrelated. I think it's interesting at least. Now, keep in mind, and again, I know nothing about this guy that got fired, but there are ongoing concerns and ongoing real problems with the Russians having infiltrated Ukraine, and that basically a lot of Ukrainian intelligence is infiltrated by the Russians. So keep that in mind too with all of this. All right, other story. Around 151 ships have used Ukraine's new Black Sea shipping corridor since it was set up in August. As you guys know, the Russians have been trying to shut down Ukraine's exports of grain. Thank you, Pam, for the gift on TikTok. And they did for a while. Then they opened it up for a year and they let the Ukrainians export their grain without basically threatening to blow it up. And then they shut it down again. Well, the Ukrainians came up with a really ingenious idea of basically having their ships hug the coast so that they go through NATO countries. Thank you, Nicola. So that basically when I don't have my bigger map because it's in DC that Ava made, but basically the Ukrainian ships leave the ports here, all right, like Odessa. Oh, let me get my little pointer here. There we go. Like Odessa and areas here. They hug the Ukrainian coast, and then right here, they start hugging the Romanian coast. What is Romania? NATO. They get a little further down, and whose coast are they hugging? Bulgaria. Then they get a little further down, it's Turkey, and then Greece. Well, all of these are NATO countries. All of these are territories where Russia cannot attack. If Russia were to attack in those waters, it would be an act of war against those NATO countries. Thank you, Pam. So Ukraine came up with the idea, or somebody did, and Ukraine bought into it, of hugging the coast so that they could get ships in and out of Ukraine up until that last part where they're in Ukraine. But for whatever reason, they feel like if they're close enough to the waters, they can protect those ships. So they've gotten 150 ships out since August, which is not bad. What we don't know is what the normal pre-war transport was of ships coming in and out of those ports. I'm going to guess it was a lot more. All right, a little more news here. Thank you, Cassandra. Oh, this is good too. So more good news from Kherson. This is very interesting. Okay, so, and I always like to kind of just remind folks because I think it's useful. You've got, in terms of what the Russians occupy right now in Ukraine, okay? You've got Crimea in the south. You've got the bottom half of Kherson province, south of the river, Zaporizhia province, again, sort of south of the river, and then over like this to Donetsk. And then from Donetsk, chirp, you go up like this, if I'm not blocking it, more or less. It's everything over here to the border. This is Russia. Everything over here, everything here, here, and down. What we found out recently was, I'm going to itch my head with my little pointer here. We found out recently was, it looks like Ukraine has now established a beachhead on the south side of the river. That's very interesting. I mean, a beachhead is basically like a permanent base where they can now attack further into wherever they want, further south into the Russian-held territory in Ukraine. Today, who was it that said it today? The the Ukrainian Marine said today, Ukrainian troops have claimed that they've established several beachheads on the eastern bank, which is down here, the southern part of the river. That's good news. I mean, they could be lying. I don't think they're lying. They tend not to lie about these kind of things. But we know for the last several days, the Russians have been nervous. They've been worried. There even was a Russian announcement that basically they were withdrawing, at least to a degree here. And then the Russians took the announcement down because they were trying to hide it. So it's not clear what was going on. But what is important about this is we've been looking at there's been lots of battles on the counteroffensive all along here, right? The big one we were looking at was over here in Zaporizhia. Still going on very slowly. This is the one where the Ukrainians have been having to deal with all the landmines and everything else that the Russians have been throwing at them, right? Very difficult. I mean, just very difficult. What we think the Ukrainians, because again, they're not going to announce publicly, but what we think the Ukrainians were trying to do here is go from here all the way down to Melitopol. And what that does is it cuts the Russian occupation in half like this. Boom. So this part of the occupation is no longer connected to this part of the occupation if they're able to reach down here to the coast. Why does that matter? Well, this is Russia over here. Russia supplies all of the territories via here by land, right? So by truck, rail, and by bridge over here. There's also ferry boats that come around here, but the ferry boats can pretty much be attacked by the Ukrainians pretty well. So ferry isn't as useful for the Russians. But the Kerch Bridge down here that the Ukrainians keep hitting, and by land up here. So if the Ukrainians can cut across here, they can cut the Russian occupation in half right here. And it means these guys here and here can only get supplies from the Kerch Bridge. And then what does Ukraine do? They blow the hell out of the Kerch Bridge. They then cut these guys off, and they start to have a problem. Not the Ukrainians, but the Russians. They can't get food. They can't get water. They can't get ammunition. They can't get more troops, right? Well, there's another way of threatening these areas. One is coming down here, which Ukraine's been trying to do. Another is coming from here and coming across like this, right? If you cut across like this, you've done the same thing. You have cut this off from this. Now, Ukraine's, I think their big goal obviously is to get back everything, but the really big initial goal is to get back Crimea. I think they think if they can threaten Crimea or get back Crimea, they're in a much better position to either get it back or at least to negotiate with Russia if it comes to negotiations. So if Ukraine is right here right now, and they've got a bridgehead, they can start, thank you, Bonnie, they can start threatening Russia in a number of different directions that could potentially cut Crimea off from everything else. Thank you, Mustard. So that's why the bridgehead thing is very interesting. Again, I always say, doesn't mean Ukraine's winning the war tomorrow, but as I always say, it is better to have small bits of good information for Ukraine than small bits of good information for Russia. So this is a good thing. All right, let's keep going. I'm looking at my light here to see. Always hard to figure out how much light to put on. A little more. Research released yesterday by Yale. More than 2,400 children from Ukraine aged between 6 and 17 have been taken to 13 facilities across Belarus since Russia's invasion. Now, we know that about 19,000 kids have been taken to Russia. What is important about taken to Russia, basically, they stole the kids. The Russians stole the Ukrainian kids. They came there. They found orphans. They even went to orphanages, by the way. They went to orphanages looking for kids. Okay, part of the Russian plan of invading was to steal Ukrainian children. Thank you, Joe, and make them Russian, which is insane, of course, right? Thank you, Mustard. So what this is about is one of the things people have been looking at is not just, thank you, Mustard, is not just what kind of Mustard is on a roll tonight. Must be payday. Thank you, kid. I'm saying Mustard. Now you got me saying Mustard. This is funny. One of the things that investigators have been looking at is not just how many has Russia kidnapped, but what has Belarus's role been? Because Belarus has been a key player there. To show you on the map, thank you, Courtney. Belarus is up here. So Belarus is Russia's neighbor up here, run by a horrific dictator named Lukashenko, very close with Putin, and they've been helping Russia a lot in the war. So the investigators have been looking at what has Belarus's role been in this war crime. Keep in mind, stealing the children is the reason Putin was indicted for war crimes. He will be indicted probably for other war crimes as well, but the initial war crime indictments was stealing the children, kidnapping the kids. So anyway, they did determine that 2,400 children from Ukraine were processed through Belarus. So therefore, Belarus had a hand in it. So see what happens from there, but that's good. Colonel Mustard is in the war for the gifts. I like it. The delivery of artillery shells to Ukraine. This is very bad. Thank you, Lizard, for the gift. More Lizard. Thank you, guys. Delivery of artillery shells to Ukraine, and shame, from Western allies has decreased since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas conflict, according to Zelensky. This is not good. Basically, not only is Zelensky worried, thank you, Joe, that the amount of artillery shells coming to Ukraine has decreased since the conflict began 5 or 6 weeks now. I kept saying 4, but it might be 5 or 6 weeks now between Israel. Oh, no, it would be 6 weeks. Yeah, because it was October 7th. Okay, 5 or 6. Thank you, Dope, for the gifts. Since the war started between Israel and Hamas, or the latest war, whatever you want to call it, on October 7th, the artillery deliveries to Ukraine have decreased. What is interesting about this is Zelensky wouldn't be saying it publicly if he weren't really worried and if he weren't getting a response privately. Leaders don't go public on things like this. You just don't. I mean, you do it because in essence, he's kind of criticizing the people sending him weapons in a way, although not necessarily because, it's not, well, he is in a way. He is in a way. So the fact that he's doing it means, I think, that privately he's being told, what do we do? We can't help you. Very concerning, very concerning. There was also a report, I didn't write it down, but I read it. It was interesting that a European Union discussing sort of the next round of aid to Ukraine. And we know the Hungarians have been horrible, of course, because they're very pro-Putin. But there was a concern by some European officials as to how they were going to pay to keep supporting Ukraine, how they're going to be able to afford it. So the fact that you're seeing these things discussed publicly, to me, is very worrisome. But more aid is coming. Good aid announcements today. The Dutch defense minister announced $2 billion worth of military aid for Ukraine in 2024. This brings the total of Dutch aid to £7.5 billion, 7.5 billion euros, which is around the same number of dollars, 7.5 billion with a B. That's very interesting. The reason I say that is because when you announce $2 billion and you're not a huge country, I mean, they're not the United States. Even the United States announcing $2 billion is a lot, right? Holland is doing this because I believe they're trying to send a message to the Russians that we're here for the long haul, right? This is something I've mentioned to you guys before. When some of these, Denmark's done this too. When some of these countries talk about for the next 2 years, we're going to be sending, this amount of money, they're doing it to let the Russians know that we're in for the long haul. We're going to be here for the next 2 years. I'm not just announcing aid for next month. I'm announcing aid for the next year. So Holland is doing this. We say Holland, those people of a certain age like me. Thank you, Succeed. We say Holland. Holland is doing this, announcing $2 billion for 2024 to say for the next 14 months, we've got Ukraine covered. Don't think we're all walking away next year, Russia. So it's very good. And it's good because it makes Russia have to sort of think twice about what it's doing, because if they think Ukraine's going to get weaker, this helps. Finland will send 100 million euros worth of military aid. Thank you, Bonnie. Very cool jellyfish. On TikTok, Finland will send 100 million euros worth of military aid in its 20th aid package. And that's it for Ukraine. Like I said, not a ton of news, guys. I'll give you some Israel-Gaza updates. There isn't a ton of news there either. There's some interesting things, but not a ton of news. I mean, look, when it comes to Israel and Gaza, thank you, Tom, there's really, I don't know if I want to say a dearth of information, but here's the problem. Israel isn't going to want to tell us what they're doing. Right? Because if you're on the attack and you're trying to take out an enemy, you're not going to go public and say, well, so we've achieved this amount of our plan. And you're just not going to say that. They have signaled the last few days, I talked about this yesterday, that it looks like they're getting ready to go into southern Gaza now. They're in northern Gaza now, and they dropped leaflets on the south telling people go to refugee centers, things like that. Like, basically what they're insinuating is they're not going to hit refugee centers, but everything else, they need to get out of. Other than that, I mean, I've still got news to give you. A lot of the news, and I'm not sure it's going to change, a lot of the news from Israel and Gaza right now is Israel not telling us all their plans and Hamas claiming the Israelis are killing people. But and it's hard because I am sure a lot of civilians have been killed. I don't believe Hamas telling me how many. I don't believe Hamas giving the details. Hamas is the government of Gaza. And nobody in Gaza is going to give you a straight story from any kind of official anywhere that doesn't jive with Hamas. Having said that, the fact that the U.S. themselves is concerned about the civilian casualties means it's happening and means it's a significant amount, or the U.S. wouldn't be doing it. But anyway, my point is, for all of these stories, it's a little weird because most of it is Israel not telling us details of the war and Hamas coming up with all sorts of numbers that you frankly can't trust. So I'm just putting it out there. In any case, case in point. This is some data from Israel, although some of this actually came from Egypt as well, because some of it came across Egypt. So we can probably trust it a little more because it's multiple countries. Israel reportedly delivered over 4,000 liters of water and 1,500 meals to Gaza's Shifa hospital for patients and staff. That's the hospital that Israel has been really circling and then took over, so to speak, in the last day or two. What's good about that is, look, better to be giving some food, and what do they give? I said water and meals than not. I mean, what is interesting to me about this is it shows that Israel is feeling some pressure to start doing some of the humanitarian work, which is good. It's not enough, but it's good that they're feeling the pressure. That's what that says to me, which is interesting. Okay. Also, and this comes along with it. Okay. Israel's war cabinet approved a measure on Friday allowing 2 fuel tankers a day. Fuel, okay? Fuel was not allowed until now. Fuel to enter Gaza for water and sewage support systems, according to Israel's national security advisor. some aid, and we're writing this, some aid has already arrived in terms of food, water, and medicine, but not fuel until now because Israel was afraid of the fuel going to Hamas. The fact that they're allowing 2 trucks a day of fuel, again, it is interesting. It means that Israel's sort of hard line cannot be as hard as it was. Having said that, we need to see how much fuel is needed, how much fuel they're getting, right? I mean, in terms of, you don't want to say, okay, that's great, that's enough. It's not enough, but it's interesting to me as an observer that once again, Israel had a hard and fast rule. They weren't going to give any fuel because they were afraid of going to Hamas, and now they're giving some fuel. That's interesting. Families of those, this was interesting too. So Israeli families of those who are missing and kidnapped, 237 is the latest number. 2 bodies were found in the last day. An older man and a younger girl, I believe, 19-year-old. I believe she was an Israeli military person, I think. And the older one was an older man, I think, maybe in the 60s, 70s. The bodies were found. So the number of hostages is now down to 237 because 2 people are dead. The families of the Israeli families, well, not just the Israelis, but the families in Israel of the hostages. Keep in mind, the hostages, half the hostages have foreign passports. 20% of them was an older woman. Okay, I knew it was an older person. 20% of the hostages are from Thailand, which is very interesting. So a lot of the hostages are not Israeli. Keep that in mind. So the families of the hostages, I don't know if they're Israeli or not. The families of the hostages, thank you, Adventures, are protesting, marching in Israel, and demanding that the government guarantee the hostages are returned safely. I was reading this and I was kind of like, okay, we talked about this yesterday. I'm sort of divided on the hostage thing because in terms of public relations, the government has to be concerned about the hostages. In terms of national security, it goes both ways. You run into a very difficult situation potentially once you start negotiating for hostages to be released, because then you start putting a price on the head of your own citizens. I think the U.S. has done this in Russia. I think we've made clear that we know Russia kidnaps Americans now in Russia, and we know that the American government is willing to negotiate all sorts of stuff for it. And that's bad. And that is certainly a danger for Israel. What these families are protesting, which is actually interesting and I'm very sympathetic to, the families say they've gotten no updates at all since the beginning of the war. That basically the October 7th attacks happened. They got notified that their loved one was a hostage, and that was it. They've had no further communication with the government. They don't know if they're still alive. They don't know if they're working on it. I mean, there's been like no communication at all. That's what the family's saying. That's bad. I mean, that's bad. They ought to be doing that. I mean, I absolutely can see why the government can't give details of what it's doing to release the hostages, because how do you, right? I mean, you can't. You can't. I mean, well, we're secretly doing this. You can't do it, right? But you still routinely check in with them. I mean, so that because I think part of the problem is for the families, if you're not checking in, they kind of think thank you, Kronos. They kind of think you're just not working on it at all. Anyway, just a point. I noticed the YouTubers are mentioning ads. I'm broadcasting directly on YouTube today. Normally I use an outside service, StreamYard or whatever, to broadcast to YouTube. I'm doing YouTube directly, which is why it's throwing ads. I don't see them, but you might be seeing ads while it's broadcasting because it can do that when I'm using YouTube itself to broadcast. So put up with it. Don't worry. It's different today. Thank you, Napoleon. A little bit more here. 558 foreign nationals and 45 injured Palestinians, along with 40 companions, arrived in Egypt today from Gaza, leaving through the Rafah crossing in the south. That's good news because remember, when the war broke out, I say war broke out, however you want to define that, but October 7th, there were 5,000 to 7,000 foreigners living in Gaza, and Hamas said basically they weren't going to let them out. So Hamas has been sort of negotiating. So another 500 being let out. They're not giving the total number to date. I would not be surprised if the total number to date was 2,500 to 3,000 potentially that have already gotten out, just because we've had a number of days now of 500 plus, which adds up. So hopefully that's the case. 3 new attacks on U.S. military bases in Iraq and Syria by drones. They don't know who, but pretty obvious it's some militant group, terrorist group affiliated with Iran. I mean, that's a given. 1 soldier was wounded. 5 countries have called for a war crime investigation of Israel over Gaza and the West Bank. The request has been made by South Africa, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Comoros, and Djibouti. In a statement, the prosecutor's office, this is an international criminal court, prosecutor's office said it had so far collected a significant volume of information and evidence on crimes in the Palestinian territories and also committed by Palestinians. Finally, I think this is the final. Yeah, not final. I've got a couple more things here, actually. Thank you for the hat there, Mustard. It's funny. I associate you with that hat because you often get the hat gift. I love that hat gift. I think it's one of the most, the other one was the sorting hat, which they don't do anymore, which bummed me out because I thought that was kind of a cool gift too. There was a poll, and I think it's interesting because I keep asking about polls in Russia and polls among Palestinians. So this is a poll from an Arab group in the region. Again, hard to know any of these polls, what's good and what's bad. I'll just say this, it's a poll that's out there. It's from the Arab World for Research and Development. Thank you, Kronos. And a couple different things. Let me get my glasses. It's looking at a few different things. It is, first of all, looking at, first one is, oops, I'm going to two different things. Thank you, Chazak. Thank you. Oh, Mozgodro, what does that say? Mozgodrotka. Spasiba, or I should say Jaku, probably. Jaku Mozgodrotka. There we go. Not always the easiest thing to say. Okay, let me get you this. So the first part of the poll question of Palestinians, and they polled Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, and then broke it apart, but also added them all together, which is interesting. The first question was, how much do you support the military operation carried out by the Palestinian resistance led by Hamas on October 7th? So the first question in the poll of Palestinians is, do you support the attack by Hamas on October 7th in Israel? Okay, listen to this. West Bank, extreme, so it's West Bank versus Gaza. West Bank, extremely support, 68%. Gaza extremely support, 46%. This is what's, now, overall, the numbers are very strongly supporting the attack. What is interesting to me is that Gaza's numbers are 22 points less, 22% less, so to speak, 22 points less than the West Bank. It's just, that's interesting to me. Somewhat support, West Bank 14%, Gaza 17%. Let me just add these up. Total, extremely support 59%. Somewhat support 15%. That gives you 60, 75% support, somewhat or extremely. Against, somewhat do not support or extremely against, 13%, 12 to 13% total. Now, you can look at Gaza if you want to forget the West Bank and just look at Gaza. You've got against in Gaza, either somewhat or total, like 20, 21%, and support in Gaza, either somewhat or very much so, thank you, Blue Aerials, is 50, 63, 64%. Those are pretty strong numbers for supporting the terrorist attacks on Israel. Those are very strong numbers. I raise it for this reason. I think people play a little bit of a game with the Palestinians, and it's a game they don't play with Americans. They don't play with anybody else around the world, which is, we sort of pretend like the Palestinians don't support their government, but we do, right? Like Americans, I mean, I am no fan of Donald Trump. People voted for the man, right? A lot of people still support the man. I'm not going to get away with saying, oh no, nobody supported him. He doesn't represent Americans. He clearly represented Americans, which is really sick and scary and effed up, okay? To suggest that Hamas doesn't represent Palestinians, I think is disingenuous. Hamas doesn't represent Palestinians to the degree that Abdullah in Jordan, the king, doesn't represent Jordanians, or Sisi in Egypt doesn't represent his people, or the other governments in the region. The people in poll after poll seem to be pretty supportive of Hamas overall. There's been some criticism coming out, but this poll again shows support, and they show support for the attack. Now, having said that, big question here. Having said that, that doesn't mean you kill them. Because otherwise, thank you, Mustard, that would mean you should kill Americans for airstrikes that the American government does, right? That you should kill American civilians. I don't agree with that, right? So just because I think the Palestinians have a little more agency than people give them credit for in terms of responsibility for Hamas, that doesn't mean you kill them. And the same thing for the Russians, by the way. The Russians, I did a poll yesterday about Putin. The Russians clearly support Putin, and they clearly support what Putin's doing in Ukraine. We shouldn't pretend, and we do pretend this with Russia too. Oh, the poor Russians. We don't blame them for what's happening in Ukraine. Well, maybe we should, honestly. And frankly, but by the way, I'm not saying you kill the civilians. Thank you, pediatric nurse. But should you blame Americans for electing Trump? Oh, yes, you should. There should have been no reason that man got even close to winning the presidency. And the fact that he's the #1 Republican, you should absolutely blame at least Republicans for supporting that man. Absolutely. It doesn't mean you bomb civilians, but should you blame them? Yes. Thank you, Amy. That's my problem with sort of the Palestinian thing. I think we play a little bit of a game where we try to say, oh, they're innocent. Everyone else is guilty, but the Palestinians are innocent. They voted for these people. They voted for them a long time ago, but they did vote for them. So let's not pretend like there was a coup d'etat or something, Thank you, Interbang. In any case, we went through the polls here. The first poll shows the Palestinians overwhelmingly support the attack on October 7th. That's bad. And then a 1 or 2 state solution. Where do you stand? 1 state solution for 2 people. Overall, 5% of Palestinians support 1 state for both, meaning there's only 1 state and both live there. I think that's an idiotic idea, and I'm glad they oppose it. 2-state solution for 2 people, meaning there's a Palestinian state and an Israel. Okay, 2 states will exist. 17% of Palestinians support that. Okay, 23% of Gazans support it. 13% of West Bank Palestinians support two states, Israel and Palestine. A Palestinian state from the river to the sea, which means wipe out Israel. And Palestine owns everything. Israel goes away. I guess all 10 million Jews die. Thank you, Colonel Mustard. 75% of Palestinians overall, 70% of Gazans, 78% of West Bank citizens want you to wipe out Israel entirely. I got news for you. If 70% of Gazans want to wipe Israel off the map, I don't think we're dealing with anybody who's looking for peace anytime soon. Having said that, I haven't seen any polls recently of Israelis and where they are on all of this. So I'm not going to sort of draw judgment there, but I think numbers are important. I think facts are important. And I think on this issue, as I've said before, looking for my shoes here, you've got too many people who don't care about the facts. Just like in politics overall, thank you. I'm whatever that is. Just like in politics overall, people want to find data that backs up what they believe. And if it doesn't, I'm going to be angry. Well, prepare to be angry. Final point here is there's been a really weird surge of anti-Semitism in the U.S. on the right among Republicans and their supporters in the last few days. And it's been really weird. Jake Tapper on CNN just did something on this. He did a really good report on it. But basically, Elon Musk has been going crazy. I told you guys about that yesterday, promoting these white replacement conspiracy theories, which I'll tell you about in a second. Candace Owen, as Proud Israeli just said, she's a black MAGA leader who's far right. She went after the Jews while talking to Tucker Carlson, who's another one. He's the former Fox News guy who got fired and is very bad. And and Charlie Kirk, who's another big one, who's a big Trumper, big friends with Trump's son, Don Jr. Charlie Kirk, big guy on the MAGA right, doing the same kind of stuff. What they're basically doing is promoting 2 different theories, one of which is the Great Replacement theory. And the Great Replacement theory is that powerful Jews have gotten together and they're trying to bring dark people into America to supplant white people, to replace them in jobs and government so that eventually, dark people, Latinos, Asians, thank you, Mustard, Latino, Asians, blacks, Arabs, right? Everybody will take over and replace white people, right? Thank you, Ellie. The other theory, and that theory, by the way, that theory that Elon Musk bought into the other day, thank you, Eli, on Twitter and supported it and retweeted it, or not retweeted, but responded to it. That theory is the one that got the Jews killed at the synagogue in the U.S. in Pittsburgh a couple years ago at the Tree of Life Synagogue, when that lunatic took over the synagogue and started murdering Jews and held them hostage, killed 11 people. That was because he was told by conservative radio and news on TV that Jews were behind an effort to bring dark Latinos into the country, and they were going to replace white people. It was all part of a Jewish plot to get rid of white people. Okay. Tucker Carlson, I was telling you, the Fox News guy, talking to Candace Owen, he started talking about a white genocide, that Jews are behind a white genocide in America. I mean, this is the kind of crazy shit that these guys are doing. Um, it's, it is just, it's, ugh. It's very dangerous. Now, I will say this. One thing that's interesting to me with this is this, this stuff is not new on the Republican side. Some of us have been following it for a while and nobody cared. Donald Trump went after Hillary, went after her, and what was it? Was trying to say, special moneyed interests, and they showed dollar signs and what was it? A Star of David, I think they showed. It was a Star of David and dollar signs showing how Hillary's owned by special interests. I mean, Star of David and dollar signs. Hello. Trump, right before the election in 2016, put out his final ad. You can Google it. Trump's final ad had all the evil rich people around the world who are trying to control the world and take over, and they've got their hands in Hillary Clinton. And he showed a bunch of famous Jews, okay, about all the evil rich people trying to take over the world. And you had Republican members of Congress do this too. It's funny because Republicans really suck up to the Jewish lobby in the US, because far-right Republicans, the religious far right, are big supporters of Israel because they need Israel to exist for Jesus to come back. Their theory is Jesus won't come back unless Israel exists, and therefore you've got to protect Israel so Jesus can come back. And then they don't tell you the rest of the story, which Jesus will come back, and then 2/3 of the world's Jews will be killed in flames because they're Jews and not Christians, and 1/3 of the world's Jews will accept Christianity, and they're the ones we'll save. But the rest of them we're going to kill. I kid you not, that is the religious right theory of why they support Israel. It's crazy stuff, but nonetheless, that's what you got. In any case, all right, I'm going to stop with that. So what was I going to say? Actually, I've got the auctions up. I will show you a couple more of the auction items. All my auctions are up, by the way. I didn't even promote the auction. Usually I do. We've got cool auctions we do over at Discord. I use these to support Ukraine. Half of our auction proceeds go. Tom, I'm laughing because Tom Roberts said, "Where did I get this sweater?" I got this sweater at a truck stop in rural France. I was in France and I was at a truck stop, and they had these, and I love this. They had these sweaters, like tons of them, in the truck stop for 15 euros each. So I bought two because I was like, okay, $15, guys. I have had this thing for 10 years now. It's my favorite sweater. And of course, it's French, so it's like the coolest little, I'm telling you, Europe, this is why some of us love Europe. There is a sense of style and everything in that place that even at literally a truck stop, I bought a sweater. It cracks me up. Thank you, Angie. Let me show you a few of the auction items. My allergies are going nuts today. A few of the auction items we've got this time. Over at discord.aravosis.com, a couple military patches, very cool. Oops, that one's upside down. This is a Ukrainian Trident. I would say the second most popular patch. They come in various colors. This is the most popular Ukrainian military patch, which is the Ukrainian flag, both with Velcro. These are new. They're not used. We've got a neat challenge coin with the Azovstal defenders. That's the defenders on the front. That's Azovstal, the steel plant on the back. This is the steel plant where the 2,000 Ukrainian troops, made up of a lot of the Azov battalion guys, defended against 14,000 Russians for 2 months and did a very good job. So that's very cool. I cannot show you this because I think TikTok will get mad at me, but it is a machine gun casing, a Russian machine gun casing from Ukraine. And it's very cool because it's been sort of made into trench art where the Ukrainians have repurposed it by painting a Ukrainian trident on it. There, I'm not going to show you. And we're auctioning that off, which is really cool, but I don't think TikTok or YouTube would like me showing you a machine gun casing, so I'm not going to do it. Cool little fridge magnet. I just think it's neat because it's hand painted in Ukraine in the Petrokivka style, which is very pretty. And well, Christmas ornaments. I love the Christmas ornaments. I've got a lot of hand painted Christmas ornaments from Ukraine. I just think they're all very cool. For you. There you go, for you guys. And this one also has writing on the back from the city it's from, but these are very pretty. And I think I've got some other stuff, and I'll show you later. I've got some t-shirts and a tote bag as well. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff. So you can check all of those on our Discord. Let's see how it goes tonight, how the timing goes, because we got coffee talk tomorrow too. So I may or may not do Discord. If we finish in time, I could do Discord. If we finish in the next 10 minutes or so, maybe. Anyway, all right, guys. You cannot bide, but you can. So anyway, those things are all for auction. You can go over to the Discord, discord.aravosis.com, or if you have Discord, just go to Discord, search for my channel or whatever it's called. I always forget that. And it's Aravosis, and go check it out. Bid. All right, guys, what do we got going here? What do we got going? So questions, etc. Please do keep the gifts coming. Please. Fan funding. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. I did not. Good. Top chat. Okay. Anyway, what's going on, guys? Thoughts of the UN. Very funny. Thank you, Timothy, for the gift. And cerveza. Gracias. Oh, that's interesting. Marcus was talking about the King David hotel bombing that I mentioned yesterday, which was headquarters to Brits, not civilians. They stayed, ignoring 2 Irgun phone warnings. Irgun was not Hamas, is not case of many bad people. Okay, interesting. Thank you, Derek, for the hearts. What else, guys? Got questions or comments or anything? Otherwise, we'll go to Discord. Unless folks got questions or something. I agree, LFSV. Trying to, I'm going to keep reporting on it. Keep the pressure on our governments to keep helping you guys, Well, question away. Elon walking back. Did he walk him back though? I didn't see him walking him back. What did he walk back? Sorry, someone's saying that Elon walked back his anti-Semitic comments. Oops. Let me see here really quick. Beep, 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 beep. I'm going to look at Elon's Twitter feed and just see if he wrote anything. I mean, IBM pulled their ads from Twitter because, get this, IBM ads showed up on some neo-Nazi Twitter feeds. And IBM got pissed and pulled their ads. I mean, guys, Elon's an idiot. They've known this forever. It just, it boggles my mind. It really does. Let me see here if he's got any, hold on. I'm finding his stuff here. Wait, what is this? As I said earlier this week, decolonization from the river to the sea and similar euphemisms necessarily imply genocide. Clear calls for extreme violence are against our terms of service and will result in suspension. Okay. He said that an hour ago. At the risk of stating the obvious, anyone advocating the genocide of listen to this. Elon Musk is one of the dumbest people out there. It is, I will tell you this as, how do I say this? Somebody who, I like to think I'm a pretty smart person. And you can always tell dumb people who think they're smart people because they screw up a lot, but they're so dumb they don't realize they're screwing up. Elon wrote a clarification of his anti-Semitic. He wrote these tweets supporting people suggesting that Jews were trying to replace white people in America and that it was anti-white racism and white genocide. Okay, he didn't say white genocide, but he just the anti-white racism. He's out of his mind. He's now trying to defend himself. Listen to what he wrote and tell me if you get he's playing a game here. Tell me if you get the game here. Listen to this, okay, from Elon. Listen to this. At the risk of stating the obvious, he wrote this 23 minutes ago. Anyone advocating the genocide of any group, in brackets, any group, will be suspended from this platform. He's talking about white genocide, guys. When he says any group, he's talking about white genocide. He doesn't want to say anybody advocating the genocide of Jews, or frankly, you could say, frankly, they're only talking about Jews at this point. Jews are the topic, but you could say Jews and Arab or Muslims if you want, right? Since that's also the topic. he's saying any group because he's been pushing the lie all week that Jews are trying to commit a white genocide of white people. And that's why he's saying, I'm being Mr. in the middle. So I'm simply saying, I don't think we should have a genocide of anybody, Jews or white people, because we all know Jews are doing the, I mean, that's what he's out of his freaking, did Disney, I hope Disney did, he's out of his freaking mind. He's out of his freaking mind. He boggles my mind. He's such a stupid man. I mean, he really is. He is the dumbest smart person. He is not a smart guy. And again, he thinks he's being cute. We'll say we oppose genocide of anyone, of any group, and we'll put the any in italics, in quotes, and nobody will know we're actually talking about white genocide that we all know the Jews are doing. He's going to say, "Thank you, Joe." I mean, it's oh God. He's smart. He may be smart in technology. I got to tell you, I wonder about him now. I was one of those that didn't know Elon, so to speak. I didn't follow him, but I was always very impressed by him. Now I think the guy's a freaking lunatic and a fraud because I have a hard time believing somebody this stupid could actually be smart. You know, he got rich. I will give him that too. Rob is saying, is there anything positive to having the 2 U.S. House funding bills kicked down the road to mid-January and early February for Ukrainian? I don't know. Basically, they were talking about shutting down the government, right? Like now, it would have been like today or so. And they kicked the can. They funded parts of the government till like January and parts of the government till early February or something like that. And it just sort of gets it over Christmas and the holidays, and also over Christmas. Members of Congress aren't even at work, or they might be working, but they're working back home in their states. So it just makes it at least something we can work on in a month or two, right? Which is good in general. For Ukraine, I don't know if it makes a difference. The only positive thing you could take from it, and I mean, Israel too. Look, Israel's going to get funded. There's no way in hell Israel's not going to get funded. I guarantee you that's going to happen. There's no question of that. Ukraine getting funded, maybe kicking the can for a month or two gives a little more time for people to try to pressure Republican members of Congress to make sure Ukraine is funded. But I don't know. I'm just not convinced. Well, our tax dollars should stay here, except the problem is our tax dollar, that's not the way the world works, okay? And our tax dollars do stay here, but when we fight wars abroad, our tax dollars go there because it means that you don't have to fight here. So if you don't want to worry about the Russians and the Chinese and everybody, feel free to move to a country that's already been subjugated by them, like Belarus or other countries. So, but if you want to live in a country that's free, you're going to have to deal with your tax dollars being spent on defense. So that's life. Because to be honest, I don't want my tax dollars spent on a lot of things that help you, but I do because that's the way it is in a democracy. I don't get to pick and choose who my tax dollars help. Government does overall. So, anyway, let me see here. Beep, 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 beep. Just looking. Oh, what else, guys? Bernie and pandas? I don't have anything on Bernie or pandas. I have nothing on Bernie or pandas. So, what else, guys? Any other questions or comments, or what? Nobody's got thoughts today. Is North Korea a factor in what, though? In what? I mean, North Korea is a factor in Ukraine. They're giving artillery shells, among other things, to the Russians, and it's going to help them. Yeah. So, mass shootings. I know we had another mass shooting, like in the last. Was it today even? Or yeah, it was today, I think, in New Hampshire. I guess honestly, as an American at this point, I kind of like go. It's like, oh yeah, which is really sad. But I kind of go, oh yeah, another mass shooting. That's nice. Our TV is going to be, this is all they're going to talk about on the TV for 6 hours. And then we're all going to forget about it because it's what we do. So I heard about it, but I mean, I'm just kind of over the mass shooting. Hopefully the shells are not good shells that the North Koreans are giving the Russians, but you never know. Is Israel going to win? I mean, it depends how you define win, I guess, right? Israel's not going to lose, so to speak, but even that depends how you define it. I think the problem for Israel is, actually, you could kind of look at it very simply. The problem for Israel is, in a way, sort of the problem in some ways that the U.S. had in Iraq or Afghanistan, which is A, can you really defeat the enemy? And B, can you really build up an alternate system of governance that works? And Israel's going to need to take out Hamas, and can they really? And then get somebody else in charge, working with the UN or whoever. And guess what? That somebody has to stay in charge, because if Hamas or somebody takes over again, or not even takes over, all you need is somebody, Hamas or Islamic Jihad, doing in Gaza what they're doing in Lebanon, where they've got part of the country and they just keep attacking Israel from there. You know? I mean, that's what's so sad about it. Kobayashi Maru, it really is, Joe. I mean, that's the problem with so much of this. You know, it's so I don't know. I don't know if Israel can pull it off. I also don't know that Israel has a choice. I don't think they do. You know, you get attacked like that, you've got to wipe them out, meaning Hamas. You got to. You don't have a choice. But can you? That's the problem. I saw that about Erdogan in Berlin. I couldn't care less about Erdogan. I think he's a joker. Erdogan's just a wheeler dealer who's always good. He's duplicitous. And as we know with Sweden and NATO and everything else too, I don't think you can trust Erdogan at his word. So, you know, I saw that he's in Berlin today. It's like, okay, whatever. You know, so. What else? Oh, I don't know. Marcus says, I love your moderated chats. Which more people would do this style? Do people not have moderators on YouTube or on TikTok or whatever? How do you not? Well, I mean, anybody doing controversial topics, right? Does Netanyahu need to go? I'd like him to go. I'd very much like him to go. I also think, let me say this. I've said before, I don't trust Netanyahu. I don't like him. I think he's a warmonger. I think he's sort of far right. I don't think he's far right, which I'm not. Even for defense, I tend to be more on the right on defense, but not like him. I think he's one of those people who every solution is a bomb. Like, it's like sometimes maybe we could try for peace sometimes too, right? I don't think he wants that. What was I going to say with him? Oh yeah, I also think for Israel's sake too. I wonder. Okay, look, the far left. Thank you, Kathy. The far left. Not even just the far left. People who hate Israel and hate Jews hate y'all anyway, right? It doesn't matter what government you have. It doesn't matter who's your president. Or the prime minister. They're going to hate you anyway. But Netanyahu certainly makes it easier because, like I said, even for me, I don't really trust Netanyahu. I don't trust I certainly don't trust Hamas. And I really mean this. I don't trust any of the data coming out of Gaza on anything. I suspect that I would say believe because I don't know, but that a lot of civilians are getting killed and it's a problem because my government believes it and I trust my government. But do I trust Hamas to give me numbers of the dead and wounded? No. Do I trust the United Nations? No, because the United Nations is getting it from Hamas, and I worked at the United Nations. I would never trust the United Nations. I used to think the United Nations was like, wow. United Nations is not wow at all. So the problem here is I don't trust Hamas telling me what's actually happening in Gaza and how many people are getting hurt and how much water they have and fuel and hospitals and everything else. But I don't really trust the Israelis because I don't trust Netanyahu, right? And if I had a better Israeli prime minister, I might be more willing to trust the information the government's putting out there about, for example, what they found would be nice for me to be able to trust that they did find X, Y, and Z, right? I just don't know that I trust them. Because also during war, the government's going to spin a little anyway, right? So anyway, that was a very long answer to, should Netanyahu go? I think he would do a better job if he left, because at least you'd take away that sort of, actually, thank you, JR. In English, we would call it a foil. Netanyahu is a foil. It's a wonderful word. It's a literary word, but basically meaning he's almost a lightning rod in a way that is used as an excuse. Thank you, Marie. That can be used as an excuse for all the problems because so many people already don't trust him and don't like him. That's the thing. And actually, IDF as well. I will say, I've seen some journalists I trust say that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, have a history of not quite telling the truth to the media. And these are some journalists I trusted. And that bothers me too. I really, this is the problem too, where for governments overall, you really need to establish a track record of trying to tell the truth, because when things go bad, you want people to believe you, you know? Now, I know Joe is saying you don't change horses midstream. That's a possibility too. Having said that, we're only at the beginning of the stream. I think they could still change horses. They're only 6 weeks into this. Also, if Israel's in Gaza for 10 years, does that mean Netanyahu gets to stay for 10 years? Come on, right? I don't know that that's necessarily fair either, No, I just said that's what I said. My journalist friends also have concerns about the IDF not being fully truthful with the media. So I think both sides I don't trust, but let's face it, I trust Hamas. I trust terrorists a lot less than I trust the Israelis. That's for sure. That's for sure. I'm not going to trust Hamas as far as I can throw them. I do believe the IDF is showing real videos. Yep. I do believe that, in part because we know Hamas was recording videos and we've seen them. The U.S. is behind all of this. All of what? IDF seized the camera of Canadian journalists. I'm not surprised though. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing I could see them doing. I'm not saying it's a good thing without knowing the circumstances, but that does not surprise me. And good to see you, Mademoiselle. Lovely to see you again. But right, I'm not surprised. Al-Shifa, I wish I knew what was really going on with Al-Shifa, right? For years, people have reported that Hamas has been using the Al-Shifa hospital, the biggest hospital in Gaza, as a headquarters and a base. This has been happening for years. Now Israel says they still are. The U.S. says they have intelligence on their own that Hamas is using it as a base. Israel goes in, doesn't find much evidence that we've seen, okay? Because let's face it, they found like 12 machine guns. Now, a hospital shouldn't have machine guns to start with, but they didn't find the volume of things you would expect in a headquarters of a terrorist organization, right? So once again, it's this like, I don't know. I certainly am not going to believe Hamas saying we would never put citizens in danger. Give me a freaking break. That's, first of all, Hamas, everybody knows Hamas already. They already know Hamas and how they do these things. No tunnels. I don't know if there's no tunnels. The Israelis say they found a tunnel. Are they telling the truth? I don't know. I just don't know. I really don't know though. And the hospital staff, I don't trust them because they're going to get killed. It's like being hospital staff in Russia. You're going to tell the truth. Even worse than Russia. You're going to tell the truth when Hamas is right there? Like, kiss yourself goodbye, But again, I wish I could trust the Israelis fully, and I don't fully trust them either on this. And so it leaves me kind of going, I don't know what's going on, But again, anyway. They found a big tunnel. They say, and they showed video of a big tunnel opening, but we don't know more than that. Honestly, this is why you really need outside journal. No, and there are some, but you need outside journalists embedded with the Israelis. You do. And even if they're under conditions, covering their censorship or whatever, you can't censor the journalist after they leave. They need journalists with them that can see what's going on so that the journalists, for example, can go with them and be the first to arrive with the troops and see, A, were there guns? B, were the guns there or did the Israelis plant them? Because somebody's going to say the Israelis planted them, right? But if you're the first people there, you will see if they're real. And I think it's dangerous, but we need more journalists that are embedded with the Israeli troops, I think. I think it would help, Kelly, how is it not flowing? Only because I'm trying to stream directly to YouTube today. So I wasn't sure sort of how well it works or whatever, but I figured I'd try it. Oh, and I always forget to do the like thing too on TikTok and YouTube as well. And follow me. Apparently those things don't hurt either. So I always forget to ask you guys that. So do that. BBC's getting into the tunnels. Okay, that's good. Well, Israel, the thing with Israel, Excalibur saying, no, wait, what's se noyer? I'm forgetting what se noyer means. Je parle bien français, mais ça fait longtemps maintenant, et des fois, je comprends pas. What have I got here? Drowning. Oh, se noyer is drowning. Oh, that's a good word. Has no objectives and no communication. I think Israel's communication has been awful. I think the Palestinians or Hamas is doing a great job of communicating. I think the groups around the world supporting Hamas are doing an excellent job communicating. I think personally, they're fringe as hell. Not necessarily you guys, but the groups that are organizing these protests are so freaking fringe, it's not even funny. The ones in New York and elsewhere, the ones in DC, it was Democratic Socialists of America who are horrifically fringe. And again, Israel's not taking advantage of this. These guys are lunatics in this country. In this country, they're lunatics. The Jewish groups that are protesting are definitely fringe Jewish groups too, and they're the ones doing all the protests. But whatever. But you know what? But they're making their mark, and they are. They're doing. I would, as a sort of objector observer, I would say they're doing very well. Putting aside a little bit of violence and the crazy stuff, they're getting away with it. Thank you, Olga, by the way, for the gift there. Israel, I think, is doing a shitty job on communication. Absolutely shitty job. Also, they're doing on objectives, it depends. It depends. On the objectives of going after Hamas, they might be doing very well. I don't know. They're killing a lot of civilians, we believe. I'm not convinced there's an alternative. That doesn't mean you kill the civilians, but I'm not sure there's an alternative of Israel going after Hamas that doesn't involve a lot of civilians getting hurt because of the fact that they're buried there. The Hamas buries itself with civilians, but the bigger concern for Israel and objective is what the long-term plan is. I don't think so, Excalibur. I think what happened, Excalibur says Hamas proved it to the world that Israel is a racist, like a white supremacist state. I don't think so. I think, look, much of the world hates Israel. Much of the world hates Jews. They always have. You've certainly seen, so look, a lot of the people complaining are people who have always hated Israel and they've always hated Jews. And a lot of them are, and they are. The countries especially. Most of the countries I would just write off. Most of the protesters too, to be honest, a lot of them I think just don't like Jews. They don't like Israel, period, which is fine. It's not fine. Not liking it, fine, but still, it's a little bit of a bias there. But Hamas attacked Israel with the intent of making Israel blow up response. And they even said it. They knew Israel was going to go nuts in response. They knew Israel was going to have to go nuts in response because Hamas did such a horrific attack. And Hamas hides among civilians. So Israel has no choice but to hit Hamas. And when they do, they're going to hit civilians. Thank you, Maddie. And that was Hamas's goal. So to say that Israel responding shows that they're racist and whatever, I think is BS. Because first of all, and this is I also think hypocritical of the world. If this were France, and somebody killed, France, what we said, the population in France is maybe 1/5 the size of the US. So multiplied by 5. If somebody killed 7,000 Frenchmen in a terrorist attack across your border, and took 1,000 Frenchmen hostage, you guys would destroy those people who did it. Thank you, Amy. You'd absolutely destroy them if they did that. The US would do it too. We would destroy them. And people complaining about civilians, we would try, but we'd still go after them, especially if they attacked us and then went and hid among their own population. We would. Yeah, we would. So I don't buy it. I think Hamas did an excellent job of setting Israel up, and basically attacking Israel in a way that it couldn't not fight back, but by fighting back, it hurt civilians. So Cliff is asking, can I, it's not going to let me. I'm trying to highlight your question on the screen, Cliff, and it's not letting me. All right. It's being evil. So Israel is now like Ukraine, both failures in PR war. I'm not convinced Israel's a failure in a PR war. You think? Ukraine. You think Ukraine's a failure in a PR war, public relations? I'm not sure I'm convinced about that. You think? I don't know that I believe that. I think, Ukraine's done an amazing job in the public relations war. Ukraine's problem is it's having a hard time beating the Russians right now. And frankly, because we didn't give them the weapons they needed in a timely manner, because we didn't want Ukraine to beat the Russians. We were afraid of angering Vladimir Putin. So I'm not convinced. I don't blame Ukraine for that. Yeah, I think, I mean, chances Ukraine's done a good job. I think Ukraine's done a great job in terms of public relations. Israel has not. No, Israel is losing the PR war. Absolutely. Mike is saying that on TikTok. I agree with Mike. Yeah. Yeah. But Ukraine, I don't think that's Ukraine's problem. I think just at this point, you know, people are getting tired. People have spent a lot of money. There isn't, and honestly, Ukraine needs progress. Oop, what you doing, kiddo? You all right? Ukraine needs progress. And if they don't have significant progress, it's going to be harder and harder for people, I think, to continue supporting them. You know? So what do you do? Anyway. What else? Your poli-sci teacher? I'm hoping you like your poli-sci teacher, Nag. So you never know. What will happen to the hostages? I mean, they may kill them, they may not. Again, I don't know what to tell you, but it's possible the hostages get bombed by the Israelis. It's possible certainly Hamas is happy to kill the hostages. We know that. Hamas feels it's getting some kind of positive public relations out of slowly releasing the hostages, so they're happy to do that for now. But when push comes to shove, Hamas already slaughtered 1,300 or 1,200 people in Israel, so they're happy to kill the hostages as far as that goes. You know. So what'll happen? I don't know. They're still negotiating, but well, I mean, I don't think so. No. I mean, Saqib says if they release all the hostages, should they stop the bombing? Here's the problem. If you're Israel, so Hamas releases the hostages, which they shouldn't have taken. So if you're Israel, Hamas blows you up, comes in, kills 1,200 people in a horrifically, slaughters 1,200 people, right? They take 237 hostages that remain that are alive, some Israeli, some not. And you attack back. And so long as they release the hostages, you're going to stop trying to kill them? Why? Now, certainly you got the civilian casualties, everything else, but I'm talking from an Israeli strategic perspective. Okay, from an Israeli strategic perspective, a military perspective, why would you stop going after Hamas just because they released the hostages? All that means is Hamas is going to attack you another day. Why would you? And you've established potentially the precedence that if you attack Israel, make sure you take hostages, because then when you give them back, Israel will stop and they won't fight you. So, I mean, that's the problem for Israel is I don't think putting the civilian casualties aside for a minute, from just a strategic perspective, I think Israel has got to destroy Hamas after what Hamas did. They've got to take them out of the picture. But how do you do that when you're killing so many civilians? And can you politically get away with killing that many civilians? And I don't know that they can. In addition to whether it's right or wrong, whether they can even do it. Well, I mean, actually the thing is, right, but the thing is, as somebody pointed out before, a lot more Germans died in World War II than Americans and people in the West. A lot more German. I mean, didn't make them right. The Israelis aren't dying because the Israelis have really good defenses. Hamas has sent, as of a few weeks ago, there were 7,000 or 8,000 missiles, rockets, that Hamas had fired into Israel every night against civilians. Every night they are sending dozens and dozens and dozens of missiles against civilians in Israel. And fortunately, a lot of it has been stopped by Israel, but we would have we would have more Israeli casualties than Gaza Palestinian casualties if Israel wasn't able to stop the attacks. So people can point to the numbers, but that's because Israel was able to stop the genocide that Hamas has been trying to do every single night. So I don't personally buy the number comparison thing. I just don't. What's a lie? Right. But what proof? I mean, I was just going to see, but that's what I mean. Like they can't prove what this is why I hate this issue. If you basically give somebody a good argument in response, they go liar because they can't explain anything else. It's horrible. It's not a fair battle. Well, I mean, they did come in and slaughter 1,200 Israelis. Sounds pretty fair to me. And when I say fair, I mean, seems like Hamas is doing pretty well. It's not fair that Israel goes and fights them back. I don't even know what that means. So it's okay for Palestinian terrorists to go and kill people around the world because it would be unfair for us to respond. That's not true. Right? I mean, why is Israel there in the first place? because the United Nations put them there. And of course, they were there. Well, why were they there in the first place? Because they were there 3,000 years ago. They were some of the first people there before the Arabs and Palestinians and everybody else, if we're going to play that game. That's where they're there. But why were they there? Because the United Nations put them there. And if you don't like it, take it up with the United Nations. But that was a decision made 75 years ago by the UN, and that's the deal. You don't like it, talk to the UN. No, I mean, that stuff drives me nuts. Why are they there? What are you suggesting? We get rid of them? All 10 million of them? I mean, seriously, you guys aren't being serious on this. I mean, you might want to do some research on that totally, because that's exactly right. The Canaanites were there before. Correct. It was the Canaanites and then the Israelites. That's right. And the Canaanites were not Arabs or Palestinians. So no, you need two states for both of them, but you've got to ensure that there aren't going to be a terrorist running the government. And I think that's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult, Anyway. What do you do? Well, the only thing is, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I'm fine. I'm just tired. I'm hungry. I gotta go put on some pasta shortly. I know whack-a-troll. I know, Sophie. It's fine. Although I like going after trolls. I find it like cathartic personally, But what do you do? Anyway, I see a lot of crazies. JJ, you're about to leave because you're sounding crazy and you're spamming. Just so you know, you don't want to do that. Exactly. Don't do that. Don't do that. So no, but as I said, look, guys, this is an issue where you're going to be accused of being biased if you don't agree with, the Borg. And my history is never agreeing with the Borg. I am famous for not agreeing with the Borg. I've learned this throughout life. Just because someone yells loudly doesn't make them right. And also just because someone's in the majority doesn't make them right either. I've learned that one too. The Borg, you got to Google. The Borg is from Star Trek. It's like a alien race of machines that take over people of different races, and they make everybody sort of think the same. And so the Borg is like a euphemism, not a euphemism, but whatever, of a thing for an entire society of people who all think the same way, and they're required to think the same way. And if you don't think the same way, you're the enemy and must be destroyed. That's the Borg. Exactly. Well, isn't that the question? Who's the Borg in this scenario? I don't know. I don't know. But I don't believe in Borg no matter what. I don't like agreeing in something just because people are louder or they're the majority, Maybe. But this issue sucks. People were obnoxious on this issue 25 years ago, guys. It's been forever. I mean, this was never an issue you could discuss with people sanely. I mean, maybe with some of your friends you can. But overall, people at large, it's the same nasty, you're mean, you're a liar, you're this, you're that, you hate, you're a Jew. I would always get I'm a Jew because my hair's curly. You're just like, really? I mean, it's just, Cliff, Ukrainian hostages taken to Russia. We don't know any more on the hostages. I mentioned earlier in the show, there was some news out today, a Yale study that something like 2,400 of the Ukrainian children who were kidnapped actually went to Belarus first, and that Belarus had a hand in the kidnapping of the Ukrainian kids, which is important because that's going to be instrumental in basically going after Belarus as well for war crimes, which they already went after Putin for because of the kids kidnapping. But otherwise, there's been no news on sort of when we say Ukrainian. Well, there's two things actually. There's also Ukrainians being held in Russia, and there was some data out today. I didn't mention it because I thought it was just kind of and I don't remember if it was 5,000 or something. I'm trying to remember the number of Ukrainians that were not just kids, but like Ukrainians overall being held prisoners in Russia. But I didn't mention it just because it was like another statistic, and I just felt like it was kind of a statistic. So anyway, there you go. Thank you for that, Cliff. Oh yeah, the mods are always working hard and hardly working. I'm kidding. It's not fun. Well, maybe it is fun being a mod. I don't know. I think it gets exhausting sometimes. Role of Iran. I mean, it's hard to say. We certainly believe Iran is pushing its surrogates in Iran and Iraq and Syria to attack the Americans, but have it look like Iran didn't do it. It was other groups that did it, right? I think Iran can't afford to to be seen as the one attacking the U.S. because we've made clear to them we'll blow them up if they do. And I think they took it seriously. So I think Iran is trying to maybe have its cake and eat it too. Iran's trying to like use its surrogates to attack us in Iraq and Syria, but also not attack Israel and not attack the U.S. like in general, not go after our ships, not go after Israel, I think. Thank you, Cinderella. I think that's what they're trying to do. You know, and right, and the funding certainly. I mean, Iran is funding and giving weapons to Hamas, to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. You know, you know. Oh, but yes, I'm gonna go. I had made some pesto last time I was here. That's in our good freezer, and I also got some pesto from Costco that I'm going to use with some nice Costco tortellini tonight. So I'm going to go do that shortly. Looking forward to it. So, and I made some bread too. So some bread from scratch. So I'm going to sign off in a minute here. All right, guys, I'm going to get going. I think because I will do. Well, you haven't done Sasha videos in a while. That's a very good. It's a very good point. I should do that. Oh, you know, I've had a difficult time finding a good recipe for pesto. Pesto is so simple, but I find it difficult to have it really work out well. You know, I've been very disappointed actually when I've made it at home. I find just very difficult for such a simple recipe. I think it must depend on the basil and everything. You know, who knows? You know. Anyway, guys, all right, I'm going to get rolling. All right, thank you for coming. Thank you, mods. I'm using Costco pesto. It's good. I bought it before. You know, but thanks, guys. I'm going to head out tomorrow morning. Remember, we've got the coffee talk on TikTok and Discord for the monthly subscribers. Monthly subscribers on TikTok, come to TikTok at 11 a.m. Washington, D.C. time tomorrow. The rest of you monthly subscribers come to Discord. I will try to set something up tonight, the Dobra Niche, Marie. And otherwise, see you guys on Monday. Oh, Vlad's going to try to join us tomorrow, too. So that'll be nice. I was talking with him today. So he will try to join us. So. From Genova. All right, guys, I will see you later. Thank you for the gifts, and thank you, mods, for controlling the crazy, and thank you all the rest of you who remained and were very sane and polite. I appreciate that on all sides. And I'll talk to you guys later. All right. Have a good night. 11 a.m. Eastern time, U.S. So 11 a.m. Washington, D.C. time, 10 a.m. Chicago time. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you. Now I got to figure out how to. Oh, they're going to end the stream. All right. See you guys. Boom, boom, and you all boom.